Alright, so this is a guide on how to DPS with Celestial. Now, for the sake of just separating the two builds I'm going to show you, I'll just call this build 1 and build 2 will be a different loadout. So going into your powers, you want to have, you want to go all the way down to Anoint. This is in the Blessed tree, so get Anoint and Benediction. Anoint would be this power right here. Now go into your Curse tree and go down to Cursed Idol and get Dark Pact. Go into your Iconics and get your 2 weapon buffs. Now with Celestial, it's one of those powers where you'll need to spec for a power in one tree and another one matching like its placement in the other in order to combo into it. So it's like hard light in that sense. So the power we'll be using to initially on the tray will be Wrath of the Presence, and it'll be comboing into Consume Soul. So going into your loadouts, this is how it should look. Actually, you can adjust this to fit your needs. So this is just where I have it placed because it's easiest for me to hit the powers when they're placed in this way. So Wrath of the Presence, Benediction, Dark Pact, Anoint, Retribution, and Cursed Idol. Now, I'll go over what the buffs do. So Benediction is a crit buff. Going down into your buffs, you'll see that it is a critical ability attack chance for 12 seconds and critical weapon attack chance for 12 seconds. Dark Pact is a might buff, which is pretty ridiculous. If you go down, you'll see that it gives you 45% might for 12 seconds. Going into my stats, you'll see that I'm at 17,862 might, but my base might is 12,431. So it's about a 5,000 boost, right? Now, Knowing is a precision buff. Going into your buffs again, you'll see that it gives you 15% precision, which is pretty standard, and 270 restoration, which is like what Carnage, not Carnage actually. Actually, not, no, don't, just ignore that. It's, yeah, it gives you restoration, and they're both group buffs, and so is Benediction, by the way. This buff right here is a group buff as well. Alright, so now I'll just show you what the rotation I use is. I'm trying to make this video as not as short as possible, but I want to explain a lot without, ending up with a freaking 40-minute video like I did before. Alright, so anyway, just hit your buffs, Wrath of the Presence, tap square, hold square. It clips with itself, so when you see the animation of your character going down like that, clip it again. Just clip it. It's really easy. Like, it's not difficult at all. This loadout is super effective. It hits hard and it's like flexible, so you can move around with it pretty well. And yeah, that's basically the basic rotation right there. You Wrath of the Presence, tap square, hold square, tap square, hold square, tap square, hold square. The tap square is the initial tray. No. Actually, okay, here's what you do. You tap, I'm saying tap square, hold square, not explaining that because Wrath of the Presence, your initial tap square will fully depend on where it is on your bar. So for me, it's on the L2 square. It could, for you, it might be on the R2 square. So I'm not really explaining that. So this means that it's basically 2 tap squares. The first is to initiate the power. The second is to do the combo, and then finishing the combo is a hold square. So tap square twice, hold square once, tap square twice, hold square once. This is what it looks like slowly. So tap square twice, hold square once. But what it looks like fast is buffs up, tap square twice, hold square, tap square twice, hold square. Just clip it with itself. You'll know you're doing it right if you get that big precision hit right there. If you didn't do it right, this is what it'll look like. You'll know you didn't do it right when you don't get that precision hit. So yeah, that's basically my rotation with this loadout. Now I'll explain what Cursed Idol does and how I rotate it. And the reason you see a breakout trinket on my bar is because when I run like alerts, or if I'm dealing with anything where I'm killing ads tend to have a habit to stun you a lot. So you kind of, as Celestial, you really don't want to be stunned and you don't want to die, because unlike other powers, you can't recover as quickly. You'll recover and you'll still have your AM going if you get knocked down or stunned, but your damage will be gone. It's not like other powers where you can store your AM and then get up and you can like say Mental as an example. You hit your 2 PIs and then you get countered or knocked down or something. or stunned, and then you get up and you're still able to hit your last PI and then get the big hit from Mass Terror. With Celestial, if you get countered, your damage is stalled until you get back up. You're not going to be able to store anything. So getting stunned or countered as Celestial means big DPS lost. So that's why for ads or alerts, I will have a breakout trinket on my bar. I don't really bother with the supply drop because it's not going to make you hit like super insane numbers with freaking Celestial. It just isn't. It's not that type of power. But it will increase your damage. So in raids, you should run it because you'll have a tank. But in alerts or large groups of ads, I just run the freaking breakout trinket. But here's what the rotation will look like when activating Cursed Idol if you really want to get the most out of your damage. So you want to go start off with your buffs. Always have Dark Pact running before you hit Cursed Idol. Alright, now we're going to hit Cursed Idol, clip it with your trinket, supply drop, and then just keep running Wrath of the Presence. Pretty simple. That's it. And I don't want to go too into detail into what like Cursed Idol does. I will tell you that it does put a PI on the ads so that when one ad dies, it'll do a might burst damage to the rest of the ads. So this is why running Dark Pact is nice, because it does boost all that might damage and it will help you get a lot of DPS in general. But the other loadout doesn't run Dark Pact and it does well as well, but it doesn't do as well on ads. It's not as good of an ad killer as Wrath of the Presence, and there's many ads in this game, so that's why I run Wrath. But one more thing I'll show you before, actually I'll show you two more things with this loadout. One of them is placement is everything with this loadout. You don't want to be this far away from the ads. If they're not well grouped up, you don't want to be this far away hitting Wrath of the Presence, because it won't hit every one of them. As you can see, it hit these 5 ads, but it didn't hit these 3. So if you're running something that doesn't have a tank in it, try to stand in the middle of the crowd and you'll hit everything around you. Now, a lot of powers don't have this benefit. Like Wrath of the Presence covers a bigger AoE than, I would say, Mass Terror even. It has a huge AoE. So that's where this loadout shines. As an ad killer, it's great. Even when you have a tank, you can position yourself just about here, which is fairly just about there, which is fairly safe. And if you have a tank, they'll have things grouped up pretty well, so you won't have this kind of spacing with ads unless the tank isn't good. And even in that situation, it's best to just stand as close to the middle of all the ads as you can. You know, you kind of just have to feel it. This is something as a DPS you just learn, is like feeling your way around dangerous like NPCs. So you'll kind of figure it out if you're running this loadout for a while. You'll know where your placement is and you'll be able to get the most out of Wrath of the Presence. Just make sure you're hitting everything. And another thing, and the last thing to explain about this loadout, is you can keep your AM going outside of combat with Celestial. This was an update, I don't know how long ago, but a few other powers got it too, like Rage can do it, Light can do it. So here's how you do it. As you can see, I'm not hitting any targets, and I'll show you that if I go into the ads right now, I'll still have retained AM damage. So let's go into Wrath. See, I got 150k, which means my AM is still going. Now, those numbers don't represent what you'll actually hit in a raid. I am CR scaled. Like, the CR scaling for me and these sparring targets is high. My differential is really high compared to them. But this is what Wrath hits without the buff. As you can see, it only hit like 70k. That's how you know it's not running. But now my buff is running, and that's when I'll get the 150ks up. So, yeah, you can keep your AM going with just hitting Wrath and lunging. Wrath, lunge, Wrath, lunge. You actually have enough time to lunge twice, Wrath, lunge twice, Wrath, and still keep your AM going. So I wouldn't do that though, because you're really cutting it close with that that 3 seconds. So I wouldn't really do that. Just lunge once and Wrath. That'll be good enough. But anyway, that's the end of part 1, which is my build, and next I'll show you what the more common build is. And actually, I wouldn't even call it common, because there's a lot of people that don't use it, and I don't know why, because it's a really powerful build. This is a build Black Angel uses, which is a league mate of mine who's been Celestial for years, and it does great damage. And yeah, I'll show you how to use it in a second. But also, let me cover the faults with this loadout in general. The faults with this loadout is if the bosses move around a lot, you will have to move with them because it's more of a stationary type of loadout. But it's like stationary, but you can still move even as a mental DPS. A mental is meant to be stationary, but people still figured out how to play as a movement DPS power. So you can still move with it. It'll just be more challenging. The next loadout I'll show you will be, yeah, the Plague and Retribution loadout. So I'll be back in 1 second. Alright, so this is the second loadout I was talking about, so we'll just go right into it. Go into your Blessed tree, go all the way down to Divine Light, and then get Anoint. In your Cursed tree, go all the way down to Plague, get Wither, because we will be comboing into it using Retribution, and also get Cursed Idol. And then your Iconics, get your 2 crits. Obviously, for skill points, with however many skill points you have, just spec all your crits, get all your crits in your weapons, and then if you have more, get your Precision in your weapon masteries and all that. So that's how you do skill points. You don't really need to explain that. So yeah, with this loadout, I will tell you that it's more difficult than the one I showed you. It's more difficult than the first build, and thus it will be harder to be more consistent with it. And with Celestial, you really want to be consistent. So if you are a skilled player, you can use this loadout and still do very well with it and keep up with the first build. So what you want to do is, when starting this loadout, you want to go in Retribution, and then you want to clip the end of it with your buffs. And then you want to hit Plague, tap square, tap triangle, hold square, and then start with Retribution spam. The dots off Plague are cooled down after 3 Retributions, so do it again. Clip the end with your buffs, Retribution spam, Plague again, Retribution spam. Clip the end of Retribution with your buffs, Plague, tap square, tap triangle, hold square, Retribution spam. And that's the loadout. That's basically it. Now, I will explain that this loadout is good and almost as good on like ads compared to the first build, because it's because you do have Retribution. If you're dealing with ads that have low health, Retribution will be plenty enough to kill them, almost as good as the first build. The first build strength is just ad killing. It can kill ads very, very well. This loadout is more for killing bosses that tend to move a lot, because all the powers in your loadout are range. Again, avoid Haunt. This isn't something you even want to use. It's just there as like a placeholder for me. I don't run it. I don't actually use it when I DPS. So yeah, this loadout is just good for bosses that move around, and it's also very adaptable in the sense that if you need to range, you can just do that. You know, because you have Retribution on your bar, and Plague is also long range. Tap square, tap triangle, hold triangle. And it even still hits good at range. I'd even say, like, I think a league mate of mine said, Black Angel said, like, Plague won't like scale down too far even when you're at range. I'm not sure, but yeah, Plague is just great as a range power overall. And even in SM, this loadout is the one you want to use because, again, like, the precision burst damage just doesn't do very well in SM for some reason. The dots from Plague hit as hard as the burst damage from Wrath of the Presence would. So this loadout is what I would use in SM as far as DPSing. I would even use Wrath. Again, Wrath is like a melee power, so you don't really want to be that close to anything that is that dangerous, like SM ads and bosses. So yeah, this loadout is great for boss killing. It's great for survival mode. It's not as great when killing ads. So that's where the two loadouts differ, but they both do about the same DPS. So it's really up to you what you want to use. Again, I will say the reason I use the loadout I use right here is simply because it's easier and it's just way more consistent, way easier to move around with it. It's not so easy to move around with Plague. Like, look, all I have to do is, you know, hit the tray, tap triangle, tap square, hold square. Like, that's it. buffs come up, refresh them. You know, you got your Dark Pact in here, so your Cursed Idol is gonna hit harder. Your trade powers are gonna hit harder. It's just it just works out really well. And yeah, that's why I prefer this loadout. The other loadout is just as good, but it's better for bosses. And this loadout is just as good as that one, but it's better for ads. And this loadout is easier, and as a result, it's easier to just be more consistent with it. But if you master the other loadout, you can do extremely well with that loadout too. So it's really up to you what you want to use. This is the one I use. You can choose to use it, or you can choose to use the other one. But they're both great, and I would say they're the only two great rotations for Celestial as far as PvE DPS. I haven't seen a better one yet. Wow, I forgot to hit annoy. But yeah, that's the end of this video. I hope this guide helps you out. Celestial, again, is just one of those powers that requires skill and consistency. You have to be very consistent. Now, this loadout I'm using, I honestly can't say it requires that much skill at all. I'm only like hitting one trade power, but it hits really well and does really good in everything I run. So yeah, I'll try to post some videos of me Celestial DPSing content, and with that you'll be able to see what this loadout can do. I don't use the other rotation, so I can't really post videos on that unless I actually run something where I'm using it. But I will definitely post this rotation I'm using right now and show you what it can actually do in raids. So yeah, I'll see you next time.